Stage, and we're going to start with the panel discussions. Couple of housewarming or house rules in today. This is like the first day with workshops. So during the day we had workshops that was from the very morning until 4 o'clock. We have the pre-registration right now still happening. We're going to have two panels. The first one is going to be just the two of us talking a little bit more businessy, but still about technology and about getting from Europe to Silicon Valley. And we have a live stream. So right now, a lot of people at home can see the two of us. And right now, we're also be open for questions for the panel. So if anybody has a question, just raise your hand, and we have a guy with a mic, so you can ask the questions that way easily. So in that case, please welcome Lubo Schmid on stage. Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me at Reactive 2015.
You're welcome, Lubo.
It's very interesting to be here as we really focus on React and React Native right now, like in the recent days.
Let's move to the chairs. It's going to be more comfy, and we have red wine for that. So we're going to enjoy our session a lot more than you're going to enjoy it. Sorry, please go on.
No, I just wanted to say a couple of words about STRV and why we basically partnered up with Reactive 2015 to bring you together this great conference. We have been focusing on mobile and web development for quite a while, and our approach is to always look for the new technologies to push it forward. And out of a sudden, there was React and later React Native, and we saw it as like a game changer in mobile and web development. So we tried to adopt it as quickly as possible. And that's our approach to development in general, to test out the new technologies and basically pick always the best and work with the edge-cutting stuff.
So I'm going to just go on with what you started with. I know the company that you're representing today for a long time. What is it, 4 or 5 years? I met one of your partners, David, in Silicon Valley for the first time. And it was roughly 2011. And you were a company, like 5 people, 6 people in Prague and doing local stuff. And then you moved to the Valley. What's the story behind that? Just share a little bit about it.
Yeah, the story is actually quite long.
Share a short story about it.
The very beginning of the company was in 2004, but it was kind of just a bunch of college kids. And we grew throughout the time, and it started to be kind of serious in 2009, but as you mentioned, in 2011 and at the beginning of 2012, we moved over to the US thanks to the Czech accelerator that helped us to make the decision to actually move there and try to sell our services. The original goal was not to do services anymore for others, but to build our own product, and that didn't pan out.
Okay.
So what
was the product?
It was a dating app. It was called The Game.
Fantastic, a dating app. Okay.
Yeah.
Did it work?
It didn't really work.
How come?
We didn't
bunch of developers doing a dating app, or what was the reason?
We didn't have enough experience with the distribution, and I think that was the main problem there. But it basically forced us to do something so we could keep the company alive.
And what did you do?
We got back to looking for clients. But it was not so easy coming from kind of Eastern Europe. We might call it Central, but in the US they always call Czech Republic and most likely Slovakia as well as Eastern Europe, even though someone might disagree. And so coming from Europe and offering services with no local references was almost impossible to close the deal.
So what was the first deal, and what did you have to do to get it? I know a little bit about the background story, so that's why I'm asking this funny story.
We're just trying to to go an extra mile in terms of getting a client. So we would offer them some extra work in advance. So let's say the client would come to us and they wanted to build some kind of an app. We would try to do as much as we could for free before actually closing the deal with them. So providing them with like designs, how it would look like, and maybe a little bit of coding as well.
Okay. Even before you close the deal, so part of pre-sales.
Exactly.
Okay. And how did it work out? Like cost structure and this kind of way.
It was very difficult at the beginning, and we are a bootstrapped company. So
that means that they have no investors. Just a side note, yeah.
So it was at the beginning it was very difficult, but as we started as like college kids, the overheads were quite low as well, and we were able to survive and get it to first couple of deals, and it was some kind of picking up. It took us actually more than a year to close a first good deal.
In the States?
Yes.
So what was the first deal?
To be honest, I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was a couple of them in a short period of time, and they were rather small. So it was like a project for, let's say, a month or two, and then we would have to look again.
Okay, so short projects. Because I know that these guys, I have to tell them a secret, about them. One of the first applications was a gay dating app, right, called Hornet, that you built in 2011 for a client.
That was actually a project that we started while being in Europe.
So that was the first one you actually did, even from Europe and in the
yes.
States. Okay.
That was, but we didn't. We were not able to really use it as a reference at the beginning. But it was the first one, and we have been working with them for quite a while. But then it got to an end.
So let's move a couple of years later to like today. You're a bigger company. How many people you have?
We are a little bit bigger. We are almost at 120 people. Most of them in Prague. Actually, today we opened another office in Brno, and we have 3 locations in the US.
Cool.
We are in New York, San Francisco, and LA. So we kind of focus on expanding this great European development and design talent that we have here, and leveraging it in the US, where the projects are quite exciting and there is a lot of investment to put into it.
So how does it work? Just probably, guys, I'm going to ask you a question: is who did they work as a developer or a designer or whatever for an American client from Europe? Just raise your hand. Who has experience with that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, a quarter of the room. Cool. So the rest of the room has no experience. So let's talk a little bit about it. About how is it working for Americans from Europe?
Well, it's a lot about communication and how you set up the development process to make it work. There is the worst thing that we see is the time zone difference, because it's 9 hours. We are 9 hours ahead, and basically
they're behind. Haha.
They are behind.
Yeah.
And when we should go to sleep, they are kind of in the productive mode. But I think it's all about the mindset that you said. And as we started like this, and we were used to working quite late and enjoying the freedom as well, you don't need the whole overlap of let's say 8 hours a day. You just need some time to check in, and you need to update the clients on a rather daily basis than anything else, because if it's that far away, they want to know that it's going the right direction.
Yeah.
They don't want you to come back to them in 2 weeks and say, oh, we did nothing because we were stuck, and so on.
So let's be more specific here. So when do your guys start at work? It's like 10, 11 a.m. and then you work until 8 or 9? Or, how is your workday structured?
Or we don't have any like fixed working hours, so it's basically up to everyone to figure out what works for them. Usually there are like the daily calls somewhere around the 4-6 p.m. It might be a bit later for some of the projects, but that's basically the only thing. And also some of the guys, they are like the night owls, so they stay up pretty late.
Okay, so you're flexible with this. And so your typical size of a project team is how big?
Well, it's changing right now because we have more bigger clients, but we have some teams that are like 10 people right now.
Okay, that's pretty big. Yeah.
These are the bigger. So I would say on average maybe 4 or 5.
So just to understand and to put it into context, you're having up to 10 people working at different times in Europe for clients in a completely different time zone that you probably don't have even face-to-face experiences with, right?
Mostly we don't have face-to-face experience. Sometimes we go to see them, we send developers to the US, or the client comes to us.
Okay.
We do these kind of exchanges to support that, but like overall there is no face-to-face experience.
So the tools are pretty important for you to be able to communicate and to exchange information rapidly with your team on the other side. What are the typical things that you do? Because you're basically a decentralized team, to put it this way. What are, like, you're using Slack, or how you're trying to communicate with the client?
Yeah, right now I can't imagine our team working without Slack at all. And that might be a good testimonial for them. But we have started using it, I think, 2 years ago, pretty much. And right now it really powers the whole company, and that's the primary way of communication. We don't
also towards the client?
Also towards the client.
Okay.
We usually set up a separated team with them, or they already have it, and we just add our people there.
Okay.
But we don't use much of emails internally anymore.
So, and you do daily Skype calls, or like what are the other tools you're using as well?
We use Skype a lot, and a bunch of other tools like GoToMeetings and some other
it's
video
hard to talk to this guy.
conferences.
Oh, we're using Skype. Give me more data, more information. What you're using?
No, I mean Skype
The
is
secret sauce, you know.
the secret sauce.
Yes.
I think in terms of like the calls and the videos, the Skype is the number one, although it kind of sucks.
Okay. Disruption time. Okay.
No, I mean there is definitely a place for improvement, and hopefully someone will take that spot. And also we use Trello a lot. And there's also a lot of tools that our clients require us to use it. Like Asana, Jira.
All the funny tools, the happy tools, yeah, with all the tasks.
Basecamp, basically we are able to adapt to anything that our client
that they
needs.
want and need. Okay, gotcha. You started working with, let's move to the development part of it all, so let's not bore these guys here so much. You started developing with React a couple of, months ago, I want to say? Or
I would say like half a year ago.
So a couple of months ago, and what's your experience till today? How do you like it? How, you're doing also React Native, as I understand. You're doing a lot of the development. Share some thoughts about this.
Well, I have quite some development background, although I don't code much anymore. I was actually coding yesterday a little bit.
What happened? Why did you do it to yourself?
I was just doing a small tweak to our website. But
is it still on? Is it still working?
You can check it out. It's strv.com.
Okay.
But yeah, we basically found out that there is React and there is React Native, and there was React Native coming to Android as well. So that looked like a great opportunity, and finally something that could really make it easier for one developer to make an app for more platforms, and would also provide a great user experience. So we started.
So we've heard this a lot before, like late 90s, early 2000s, you're going to code it once, it's going to work everywhere, remember Java, that was, a technology way back. So why is React different? Why are you betting and doing, client work on React and not on Java, let's say, or other technologies, also promising this multi-platform, compatibility?
I think before it was just some kind of joke. But what I feel about React and React Native is that there is a huge opportunity in using the same language and translating it to the native code, so you can actually use all the native components, and you can use all the stuff, the latest stuff, and you don't have to wait for the framework developers to actually update it. And you can like right after the release of the new operating system, you can basically use all the functions there, and that I think is the most crucial piece in terms of staying on the edge of the technology.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the work that you actually did in React, the projects that you delivered or you're currently working on. I know you probably cannot disclose a lot about it, but if you can share some thoughts on the existing projects that you've built with React. What were the team sizes? How did it work out? What's the learning curve? All of it.
We actually started using React on one of our biggest projects, where we have around 8 developers, and it's great to see that also the speed improvement of that app is huge. It's like with React it's super fast.
So what, like tenfold or fivefold, or what to be more?
It might be somewhere there.
Okay, nice.
But what was like in terms of learning curve? Yeah, definitely it takes some time to pick it up. But it's like with any new technology, you just need to give it a chance and get fully into it, and then obviously everything has its pros and cons. But
so what are the pros and what are especially the cons of React?
the cons? There's not so many people experienced with it.
There's going to be 500 people here sitting tomorrow, so I presume there's going to be a lot of engineers.
Yeah, that's great that there is such a conference, because this is gonna break. But to me, that is the biggest constraint. But
so the knowledge of the people. So what's the learning curve for React? The learning curve. How I've been building applications in Ruby for 5 years. And I've did jQuery, before that for front ends. How long does it take me to switch to React?
Well, you'll be able to switch pretty fast, but like in order to understand like every single detail of it, it definitely needs a bit more time. But let's say a couple of months, and then you are able to build a really good app with React and
a couple
React
of months. Okay, yeah, fair
that's
enough.
what I would guess. But we can ask the guys that are already experienced with it.
So I think this would be a perfect time to open the discussion to the audience. So as we call it, the audience participation part. Yes, there is a question. So we'll ask the mic guy to share the mic.
So does it make a difference if your clients are in the USA and supposing you're building a mobile app for them? And one of the things that's interesting about React Native is that you can push code live to the device. So if someone asks for a tweak or a change, and you can change it, and they could get it a few minutes later. Have you made use of that yet? Or, I mean, did you ever what was the story like deploying or showing or demoing new versions of mobile apps to people that far away beforehand?
For the native apps that we write in native code, we use mostly TestFlight or Hockey app. So it's not a big deal to send it over. It's definitely a huge advantage that you can change the code live. So I think it's gonna be a great way to when you submit an app to the App Store. Usually it takes you a week or so to get it approved by Apple, and being able to change some stuff and not having to do this review process is definitely great. On Android, it's not such a problem because there is no review process, but on iOS, it's quite painful.
So how long does it, actually, just as someone who hasn't done Android native development, how long does it normally take to push an update on Android?
It takes a couple of hours. Okay, it's in there immediately, but in order to to have the new version appear in Google Play, it's a couple of hours. So it's definitely going to be useful on Android as well because it's instant with React Native.
Feel free to ask more questions. Yes, right there. Oh, behind you. Oh, great. Go for it.
So what is the ratio between web application and mobile application that you are working on?
I would say it's 80-20, maybe 70-30.
Towards what?
Towards mobile. For quite some time, we have been doing mobile only. And then we realized that every single mobile app that we do requires a backend. So we started hiring backend engineers. And then we realized that we don't want to do just a piece of a product, but we want to do the product entirely. So we wanted to cover the web portion as well. So we expanded more towards web too. But still, it's mostly mobile apps and some web apps here and there.
There's one question right there. Yeah.
If you have to decide if you create a new application, for instance, and you have to decide the technology used, when would you use React Native, for instance?
It's a great question.
Would you use it for a client project right now?
There is something that I would like to mention, and I will not consider our team. I will get to it later, but you should always check what resources you have available. If you have an iOS engineer, if you have also Android engineer and backend engineer, and you want to create a great product, you can do it with them, no problem. But if you have only two of these, or you have one and you have someone experienced with React Native, it's going to take you less time to actually do it with that person. So for me, it would be a lot dependent on the resources available and also on the budget for the project. And considering,
so would it be more expensive to do it in a native, React Native, than compared to a native application?
I think the opposite.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. So it's cheaper to do it in React Native.
Yeah, I would say so. It's not like it's not half of the cost, but it should take you less time because you can leverage some of the stuff for both of the platforms. And considering whether I would do a client project in React Native, I would definitely go for it as long as the client is okay with it. As we bet on the technology and we wanna get better and better, and we have already started doing some projects in React Native. So it's definitely a great way to do apps. But it's not for everyone. I feel like this, but it could. There is always going to be like native mobile developers, but I think that the ratio is gonna change than it's now with like the other kind of not so good cross-platform solutions.
Okay. Right here in front.
Yeah, hi. So you said that there is an issue with hiring experienced React developers. And what do you think about hiring generalist developers that are good software engineers, can learn new stuff? Because in a few years, new technology will gonna show up that will be super great, and it's just how technology works, and you will have the same problem.
Yeah, I love this approach because I feel like there is only one kind of software engineer, and it's a good software engineer that can learn anything that is necessary to build the thing. So I would definitely share your opinion that if the developer is good, then he can pick it up pretty quickly, and there doesn't need to be prior experience with this particular framework.
So for your React projects you have right now, do you mostly work with people that had previous experience with React or other developers that just learned it?
We have mixed teams, so we have some people that are experienced with it, and some of them are learning it on the go.
To do a follow-on question on this one, only a small part of your team right now understands React and can write and do React applications. This is natural because you just started half a year ago. How much are you betting on React as the next, type of language or technology that you're going to use for the majority of your client work? Is this going to be a big thing in STRV, or is it going to be just a niche for some of the clients?
Well, you can see that we are here, one of the partners of the conference, and if we would see it as a niche, we would most likely not be here. So we are betting big on React and React Native, and we feel like it's gonna be used on all the web projects and at least 50% of the mobile projects that we are gonna do.
Okay, that's pretty impressive. How you're gonna switch? How you're gonna make the switch for out of 120 people, you probably have 80 engineers, I'm guessing, or 90. How you're gonna continuously try to transition from your Ruby or your native applications into React? What's going to be the process?
The thing is that we are growing quite fast, and I don't think that we need to have all our people learn something new. Obviously, we can transition some of them, but we can also hire new ones. So that's, I think, how we'll do it, as we have some big plans ahead, and we are only at 120 people right now.
Only 120. Okay, that's modest. Lovely. So in terms of like the growth, just draw me a picture. Next year, end of next year. This is almost end of this year. How big you want to be? What are the plans, the visions for STRV? Is it going to be 160, 200 people? Like, where you want to get at?
End of next year?
Yep.
It's a difficult question, because if I send something and then we don't make it next year, then you will laugh at me, right?
Okay, 122. You should get that number.
Considering that we have opened the office in Brno today, and we are leasing an office in Prague that should accommodate 500 people in May next year, I think we have some big plans ahead.
Pretty big plans. Well, okay, that's exciting.
And
so, yeah.
No, I mean the goal is to be the top IT company in the Czech Republic. So basically, wanna merge and gather all the talent and all the people that are interested working on the cool technology.
Let's talk a little bit about HR and finding great talent, because we all know, even though we've been said that Slovakia, Czech Republic is an amazing place or layer of great developers and great engineers. That's true. The 25 of them are amazing, but if we need more engineers and more people to come in and to really be top notch, what is the way how you're looking at talent, and what's your recruiting strategy for that?
Well, you just need to talk to a lot of people to find these 25. And if you want to find more, then
Like per month, if you're going that fast, right?
well, right now it's around 10 or 15 per month.
Okay.
But it's just approaching a lot of people, having something interesting to offer to them, and making a good environment for them to work at. And if you combine all of these, then there should not be anything to stop the growth.
Okay. So a good company culture is important.
That's for sure.
I'm just, I stole the word from you guys, so please ask questions, and I'm going to be quiet. Right there. Yeah. On a completely other side. Right in the front. Behind a lovely lady. Yeah.
Hi, how are you? How do you expect to keep up the team culture, the company culture, when you are recruiting so many people in so short time?
That's a tough one.
Go for it.
I think that we have proved that we are able to make it work, and we are focusing on the important stuff, and that is that we hire people that want to work hard, that want to work on the interesting stuff, that are motivated to work on like exciting projects. And I think the most crucial piece for them is to provide them with a project that they'll like. They will feel that they're learning, they're doing something exciting and something meaningful. And all the other stuff like company culture, environment is something that needs to be added for sure. But it's the core of it is that interesting stuff to work at, and all the other stuff that's the bonus.
I know that the guys. I've been following the guys at STRV closely for a couple of years, and they have a very specific culture. Drinking in the night, going in the gym at the very early morning, and then coding. During the day. I think that's typical, except of the gym for most of the developers out here. So you're combining a lot of different things into culture. You have your crazy gym fitness people in your company that they could open a gym easily. You've got your engineers. You've got party animals, and it's so complicated to put it together. What's the unifying layer? It's like you have the same sense of humor, or you're all from Czech Republic, or what's the same glue that puts you together?
I think that it's the stuff that I have mentioned, the work on something that is meaningful, interesting, and doing also some impact, and taking things to the next level.
That's a very politically correct answer to have, right? Yeah. Okay. Somebody else ask a question. He's not going to respond to mine. Yeah. Right there. Cool.
Talking about time management, how are you usually organizing your projects? Are you using a specific project framework like Scrum?
Good question as well. We use some pieces of Scrum, but we don't as we work mostly for startups, we try to stay agile as agile as possible. Because usually what our clients do is that they change their expectations like from day to day. Like every day there is a different thing that they want to prioritize, they need the most, and so on. So we try to stay as agile as possible. And one thing that we try to avoid as much as possible is deadlines. And especially like the hard deadlines that someone would come to us and would expect, I want this, and you tell me when it's gonna be done. We found out that it's extremely hard and close to be impossible to do right estimate. And even if we would be able to do the estimate, the specification would change. So
you're basically charging them money and not giving them any deadlines to when you're going to deliver the application.
we don't do much of a deadlines.
You don't do deadlines. Okay,
No.
fantastic. Yeah, okay.
But the thing we do, on the other hand, is that we provide them with like daily updates of what's been done, what's the plan, and so on. So they see the progress, and if they are not happy with the progress, then they can always say stop.
Okay, so getting to like continuing with this question is there's a specific type of a client that can understand that you're not working with deadlines and you're not working with hard times and you're gonna be here at this and that time. It's sort of 28 milestones and 22 work packages that you need to do. How do you look for the right client? Who's the right client, and can you attract them for STRV?
Yeah, that's the most difficult thing, to find a client that will actually understand that. And most of the clients that we got it through referrals. So when they come to us, and they usually heard from a friend or from someone else that we did a good job somewhere. So they presume that we'll do a good job with them, and
Yet again. Okay, so it's word of mouth, you say.
Exactly.
Okay. I presume there's a lot of freelance developers, or a lot of people working in smaller companies or engineering teams, or companies delivering software for bigger companies. What would be your golden advice for these guys in order to strike their first bigger client from the valley or from the States? Is it important to be there on the ground, or can you externally share some thoughts on this?
It's extremely hard to get a client from there without actually being there. At least for a company. For a freelance developer, it might not be so difficult, because there is a lot of sites where you can look for these kind of projects. But I think it's the referrals that are the most important.
If you have only European referrals from Banská Bystrica in Slovakia, how are you going to strike a deal? And
then you are in the same.
You're screwed, right? Then you're screwed. Yeah.
You're kind of screwed. That's the same situation that we experienced.
Okay, so you had to move there and wait a year for the first clients to come in.
Pretty much.
Did you do okay, let's presume we're going to buy tickets to San Francisco, fly there, and we're going to send, okay, this is my company XYZ, and, how much the fake it till you make it attitude was present with your company at the very beginning in the States? We're like, oh, we're an American company, we're sitting here, and we have this weird, Eastern European accents, but that's absolutely okay. Or what were you doing? You hired an American, or, what are the steps that you did?
To be honest, we didn't hire any American person until recently, so it was all up to us to figure out and go through. We are kind of playing. There was a lot of faking it until making it.
Okay.
And I think it's necessary in business, and we still are looking for the best best combination of what we should do in terms of, we want to be perceived as a local company, but we don't want to have only local developers. So right now we have an apartment in San Francisco, and we send 4 developers there every month.
So you say you have developers in the States, the 4 of them, also from Czech Republic, and 120 back home, right? Yeah.
But it's not really that the clients would require.
So it's still fake it till you make it.
Kinda. It's not for they don't need to code there. We just need someone to be
show them here's the living developer, or
to be present, and
you see he talks, he lives.
It might sound a bit weird now.
Yes.
I'm kind of circling around, but we benefit from having someone in the US as well.
I completely get it. Yeah.
It's hard to have the team just there. That's the only thing that I wanted to say.
So if you say you have office, and just last question, we're going to open it to you guys again. you say you have offices in New York, LA, and San Francisco. You have only your sales offices in New York or LA, or how does this work out?
Yeah, basically we have one person in New York.
Okay, so she's working from her apartment, and
No, we
Yeah?
have.
Regga's office, yeah.
We work out of a co-working space.
Okay.
In LA, it's kind of the same, and the most people we have in San Francisco, where
Four,
it makes
yeah.
the most sense for us. It's actually about 7 right now.
Okay, so 4 developers and 3 sales.
There's more developers because like what we also do is that we fly them over for some projects. So,
Okay.
when client requires the local presence for a certain time, we just fly the people there.
Okay. Nice. Floor is yours. Yeah, see hand right there.
Hi. My question is if you work only with direct clients or if you work also with some agencies or other software companies, and then I will have other question.
Yeah, thank you for the question. We have tried working with the agencies, but the lead cycle, or how it's called in the sales terminology, I don't know. Basically,
Lead
the time
or sales cycle. Yeah, I'm the sales
lead time.
guy.
Yeah, that's it. It's long with the agencies because they have some approved budgets and so on. And for a company that grows so fast, it doesn't really work. And also the big companies, it's the sales cycle is really long. So basically the majority of our clients are startups and we work directly with them.
Thank you. Other question is if you outsource work and how often do you use freelancers and from what locations?
Those are really good questions. I like them.
To be honest, we try to not outsource anything and do all the work internally because we feel like that's the added value that we put into the project. And with outsourcing it, we kind of lose control and we don't have a process for working with people outside of the company. So we don't do it.
You don't use freelancers either?
No. We have people that are working primarily for us. So like basically
Full-time employees, right? Yeah.
we have full-time employees. We have some contractors as well.
So out of the 120, how much are full-time or part-time?
Well, if you consider full-time 40 hours a week, then there's like 95% full-time people.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
I know there's a question in the front.
Hi. So I don't know if I missed it, but what about remote work? Full-time but remote for you? Do you have it?
We used to do that, but was like a year and a half ago when we realized that the culture and the environment is an important part of the company, and the people that were working remotely were lacking it. So we stopped working with people that are not present in the office at least like 3 days a week. But definitely there is an option for working from home.
That's a great question. I'm going to follow on with another one. You have 5 offices right now. So if you're trying to have the same culture in every office, what you're doing for that?
Well, we opened the office in Brno today.
Okay, so that's a non-issue. Okay, yeah.
That's to be figured out. And the people before they were in Prague, so they are.
So all the people in the valley were before in the Prague office.
Everyone pretty much was in the Prague office and then moved somewhere. We have I think only one person that is part of the team, and that's our guy from the US, and it's a bit more challenging there, but we are flying him over to Prague from time to time to fix that.
Okay, cool. Let's do questions from the audience. Is there one? Cool.
One more. Since you have started to work with US clients, do you continue with Czech clients or clients in Europe from the same hour rate? Or do you charge different price to Europe clients?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I'm waiting, anticipating the answer.
Yeah, the answer is not gonna be shocking. We don't work for any clients in Europe right now because we feel like we wanna create impact, and you can create impact only if you focus and concentrate everything on one location. And like we already split the focus between New York, LA, and San Francisco, and that's already a huge huge split. So I think that's enough. And with this team, even in San Francisco, no one knows us. So we wanna focus more on the U.S. market, and also we find the clients more likely to work with us there than here in Europe.
So you're not doing any European projects? Whoa, that's a shocker. That's really... So only American ones?
Yes, except the ones that we do on our own.
Okay, go for the question, then I have a follow one. Yeah.
So another one, do you make some partnerships with startups that do you get some equity maybe? And another question, are you thinking about some of your products still, trying to develop something of your own also?
That was my question, so that was a very good one. Yeah.
So the first one, equity, yeah. It goes along with the startups that in some cases they don't have much money to pay us, so they offer equity. We don't like it much because it's a huge risk for us. But with some of the startups we do it. So right now I think that we have equity in like 7 or 8 startups.
Because I know that you work for a Y Combinator company that got acquired to Square, right? So
we didn't have any equity there. It was
bad for you guys. Bad for you.
It was Caviar, and they were acquired for 100 million.
Mm-hmm. Well, equity would be nice, right? Yeah.
But,
early retirement. Yeah.
Would not be bad. And that was the second part of the
building your own startups.
Oh yeah. With the company growing that fast, we have hard times balancing the resources. So sometimes we have less people or more people, and we basically try to fix that with doing some projects on our own, where we can leverage the free resources. And also, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the original idea was to build product on our own. And right now, I feel like we can do actually both of it. We can have a good business that is gonna deliver service to others, and we can also build products on our own because we have this great team. So right now we have.
So what are the startups you're working on?
We have a gay dating app that is called Lavender.
What's with the gay stuff? You know, gay dating apps for the first project, right? This one, you know.
It's a great market.
Be specific.
There was a great opportunity for us because we knew the space. We knew that it was hot, and we had some experience with building a dating app. We have done 6 or 7 already. And it was just a good choice, I believe.
So you did 7 different dating apps.
Yes.
Lovely. So you probably have like a non-exclusivity. You don't do that, right, for startups. So anything that you create, you can recreate and.
With it depends. With some of them, we have some agreements that we cannot operate in the same field, but we try to be as specific as possible. So we don't want to steal anyone's idea, but we don't want to close the opportunities either.
Yeah, obviously. We have time for like 3, 4, probably 5 questions more. So, okay, this is your chance to ask anything. And right now, I'm not bored. I'm looking for Twitter for tweets and seeing if I can ask any from here. But please go on and start asking. Yeah.
Hi. Do you do more projects that you deliver and forget about it, or like projects that you deliver and then maintain for months and years?
The second option is the correct answer. We are looking for projects and companies where we can partner up, and we can be the technical team. We don't like because that's what was happening when we're doing projects here in Europe. That we would do just the first version of the product, and then it would be kind of dead because there was no like continuous development. And like right now, most of our clients are long-term clients. On the other hand, we don't.
So what means long-term? Like more than 6 months, or what's a typical time span of a project for you guys?
I would say more than 6 months.
Okay. So really, you have like open contracts that you're working with them as an external team until you fuck up or something, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Until they decide that they want to take it in-house. Or
that's a nicer way to put it. Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Or it's like with the startups, it's hard because most of them fail. So it also happens from time to time.
Okay.
And so the second part is how do you do QA?
How do we do QA?
Yeah, for bug fixing.
Great question. Most of the testing is actually done by the developers. We leverage some third-party services to test for us, so that's also part of it. And we are in a process of setting up a QA team internally as well. But it's a hot topic right now.
There's one. Okay, cool.
You did mention that with the startups, it's kind of hard with the funding, and you don't like equity so much. So how do you lose this? How do you make this riddle work? So
usually the startups that we work with, they make it to some funding so they can work with us. So in general, for startups, it's hard to raise funding, but obviously if they want to work with us, they must be able to pay. And there's a lot of startups that raise the money, and primarily we try to work with them, because if we would work only for equity, then the company most likely would not be here anymore.
Do you make also some kind of investments, like that? Hey, we like this idea, so right now we give you better price, but later on you will order us as a main development team.
We do these special deals from time to time as well. That we offer like special pricing in exchange for it might be testimonial with someone who is like well perceived, or it might be like a potential bigger client for the future. So
thanks.
The deals they vary a lot.
One more right there. Okay.
Hi, Lubo. My question would be about your recruitment process and HR in general. I would like to find out how do you cope with the fluctuation of workforce in our field, and how you keep the team motivated to work for you in a long period of time, rather than just go away and be freelancer or whatever.
Great question.
We actually have one of our technical recruiters, Ashbeta, here with us, so you can talk to her later as well to get some insight. But in terms of looking for the people, I think it's a lot about what you offer, and I feel like that there's a lot of people that are sharing the same approach as we do, and that's working for on interesting projects and for the clients in the US. And in terms of the fluctuation and keeping the people in the team, it's hard. And up until recently, I think in total there were 3 people that left the company by their decision in the entire history of the company.
Only 3 people.
Only 3 people.
That's unbelievable. If you imagine that the typical time span is like 2 years, the decay of a developer in a company, and you say, you know, that in 9 years, 3 people, whoa, crazy. So that's the culture, or what is it? Where there you have a chain on the leg, or how do you do it? Yeah.
You can see that they have no chain. So
they're probably your friends. You put them abroad and take nice people. Yeah.
They are actually not the developers. We just have them to wear the T-shirt.
That's why.
No,
okay.
no, there is no chain. There is nothing that would lock them in. But we try to make it as engaging as possible, so everyone wants to stay. And we also try to take the company to the next level every single day and every single month. And it's moving somewhere, and the people are sharing the vision with us. So I think that's why they are still with us.
Right? That's cool. Time for 2 more questions. Right here in front.
Thanks. I would like to ask a more technological question. I'm new to React myself, and for me it still looks like a giant bucket filled with multiple libraries with overlapping, fields. How do you pick the right combination? Do you try to stick to some choice, or do you actively search among the different things? Is there any particular combination that suits you well?
Thank you for the question, although I don't feel that it's the correct question for myself, but still I will try to answer. Like both of what you mentioned makes sense to me. In the team, we try to have some coding guidelines for every department, and we try to we want everyone to use the same kind of technology, the same libraries, and so on. So usually we seek for the best. But it doesn't mean that it could not change. We also look for what's new, what's better. And if it's better, we just replace it, and we have everyone to use it, to use this new thing. So I think that's what the approach should look like. And it's also good to get some feedback from other people. So if you are doing a project on your own, you might want to spend some time talking to someone else and figuring out what the best technology stack would be. And if you want to learn more about like this technology issue, you can talk to either Joška or Daniel or Láďa.
Those are the guys in the STRA t-shirts in the front.
Yeah, they're right here.
Are in the front row. So the only guys in, front row means like the 3rd row, because nobody's, crazy enough to sit in the front row today, not close enough. I'm going to ask a question to the audience. Who is new to React and is here? Oh, shit. Okay, that's a lot of people. That's cool. That's cool. So we're probably, after this 3 days, we're going to have a lot of more knowledge about React and how it works and all of that with all of you. I'm going to ask the question right there at the very end. I believe you raised your hand. So yes, great. And then 2 more, and I think then we have to wrap it up. Yeah. At the very end, yeah, right there.
Hello, I have a question about the event you organize with your company, where you bring some people from Silicon Valley. Who we can expect in near future?
Is this question staged or not? Tell me. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. We call it Silicon Valley Insights, and we try to bring someone related to the technology field we are in every month. And the next event is, I believe, in a week or two, in 2 weeks, in 10 days. We're gonna have Honza Spidlan from Dropbox. Before he
That sounds like a very Czech name.
He's Czech.
Okay.
And then we're gonna have Tom Kircha from Adobe.
Okay.
And it's gonna be even more exciting.
That's also a Czech name, right?
Yes, we have a lot of.
So it's like Silicon Valley insights from Czech people.
It's not just Czech people.
Slovaks as well.
Slovaks as well. We had Juan from Spotify. So
okay.
that could.
Gotcha.
Juan is not really.
It's a
Czech
very
name,
American
right?
name. Yeah. Juan.
So we try to like more precisely is like we try to bring people from the interesting companies in the technology field. So they don't necessarily have to be from the US or American.
Or Valley or whatever. So it's only called Silicon Valley Insights, but we are going to bring somebody from Bratislava. You know, I'm available.
If there is someone who would like to participate at our Silicon Valley Insights, we might consider it.
I'm right here.
Okay.
Cool. I saw 2 more hands right here. Okay.
Hi, first of all, thank you for giving us some insights to your company. I have 2 more questions related to your employees. First of all, what's the average age of your employees, and how old is the oldest and how young is the youngest?
Is it 21 or 22, you know?
And the second question is, what about female engineers? How many female, or to what percentage is a female engineer staff?
Great questions as well. The average age, I believe, is around 27, maybe 26 or 28, somewhere there.
Or 25, 24, right?
No. We are getting older, unfortunately.
How old is the oldest one?
The oldest one? Something over 30. Maybe 35.
Yuck, that's ugly. Oh my God, over 30. Who wants to work at these guys?
No, I think 30,
unbelievable.
35.
Yeah. 35. Oh, that's, come on. Okay.
And the second part?
Girls. Women.
Girls.
Yeah.
Women. I think right now we have 16 women in the team. And out of the 16, we have, unfortunately, only 1 engineer. And 2 designers.
Okay, but it's getting better, right? The ratio is getting better. When you started, it was less than 16, or no, the ratio. Are trying to positively find more girls in tech, or not much.
We're trying to, and especially what I would like to change is to bring more women engineers on board. Mm-hmm. Because like for the other positions, it's not so difficult to hire women, but for the development, it's extremely hard. So we try to do something about it as well.
Like we at Vacuum Labs, when we organized this conference, we felt very strong about diversity and about people of different race, sexual orientation, or gender actually, that should be more involved in technology and be more inside of the discussion. So it's not only a white male topic. And I think we try to be as inclusive as possible. So hopefully on this conference during the next a couple of days, you're going to find a lot of different, diverse people you can talk to, exchange ideas, and enrich your point of view on technology and other topics as well. But to close the discussion, I will ask, or I will open it for one more question, and then we have to really close it up. Right there, yeah? You like questions.
So let's stay with the employees. How many engineers do you have? So basically you have 120 people, if I understood it correctly. How many of them are engineers and how many are the HR, management, and whatever it takes?
The ratio from the top of my mind would be 65 engineers, 10 designers, and the rest is the management and operations support.
Okay. We've been talking about next year and your plans of what to do when you want to grow rapidly. You don't want to really share any specific numbers, and that's completely okay. But what's the vision for STRV in the next couple of months, years? Where do you see yourself? Are you going to be only a software studio, or are you going to do internal projects? Or are you going to be more IDEO-like? Or what's the vision of the company as you as one of the partners of the company? If you can share a little bit.
We have one surprise that I'm not able to disclose just yet, but
have some more wine. That's enough of it.
I was trying to, but it was not enough.
Not that good, or what?
It's got something to do with investments and with really interesting people from the US making projects with us.
Okay.
Together.
So nice. So nothing more, but it's going to be an American joint venture with STRV. So that's what we got from this. Yeah.
Nothing more for now. But I have like two goals. One is really to create the best place for tech people, design people, and also all the other guys and girls that we have on the team. For example, in HR, recruitment, or account management, and make them happy. On the US market, obviously, is delivering the best services and working on interesting projects. And I would like to combine these two goals together. And on top of that, add that one surprise that I'm not able to fully disclose just yet. And hopefully it's going to pan out.
Fantastic. On this very positive note, I would love to end the discussion. Lubo, thank you very much for staying here with us. And I believe we're going to be around for a couple of more minutes and tomorrow as well. So people can reach out to you, talk to you. You're going to have a stand tomorrow here as STRV, so you can talk to them and see if these guys are of any interest for you. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thanks for the questions.
Thanks. Cool. Thank you very much. Cool.
Thank you.
Great. So guys, we have like 15 minutes of a break. Run for water, run for coffee, tea, whatever is your preferred. Run for, at the vacuum lab stand, we have wine. It's pretty good. This was a good teaser. So just go there. There are going to be people, just, have a good glass of rosé wine and come back at 6 o'clock. And we're going to have a discussion, a technology discussion with the speakers. So there's going to be a select panel hosted by one of the guys from Vacuum Labs and having a very techie talk. That's the most I can do, yeah. He's going to talk with the speakers, some of the speakers, on topics I have no idea about because I'm prepared to talk. So I'm going to leave the stage for these guys, but give them a big round of applause. Thank you.
Hi there. I would ask someone to turn Slido on. Yeah, good. So, if you have any questions during this discussion, you can use slido.com with hashtag #GoReactive, and we will answer your questions. Now, let me introduce our speakers here. This is Martin, who's from Meteor, Guillermo, who's from many companies.
Too many organizations.
Yeah. Richard, who's from No Red Ink, and Nikita, author of DataScript. So guys, tell us something more about yourself and what made you doing web development. What do you like about it? Let's start with Martin.
I'm not actually a web developer per se. I've been doing mostly native iOS development for the last couple of years. And I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Meteor, the JavaScript framework. A few people.
Yeah, a lot of people.
So one of the...
Almost 75% of the crowd.
Yeah, that's surprising. Meteor is a JavaScript, an open source JavaScript framework, but one of the central parts is sort of a data synchronization protocol called DDP, and I developed a native iOS client for DDP, and that's how I actually got to work on Meteor, got hired by Meteor. So even though I'm working on sort of other parts of the stack, Cordova, for instance, Cordova integration, I still consider myself mostly a mobile developer, and I'm not a big fan of, let's say, mobile web apps per se, but I am pretty excited about React Native, for instance.
My name is Guillermo. One of the organizations that I do represent is Socket.io, among others. And my background is, of course, real-time communication frameworks. Before that, I got interested in the web as a medium where I could iterate on code really quickly. So that's my background. Basically, developing tools that allow people to have that instant feedback, whether it's about synchronizing data or whether it's about the tools that they use to get feedback really quickly or to take something that's designed and turn it into a product really quickly as well. And I think the web is a great medium for that quick iteration process. Everything is dynamic, and I think it's worth exploring new ideas on this platform first.
Richard, I work for a company called No Red Ink. We make grammar and writing software for English teachers. I also made an open source writing web app called Dreamwriter that works offline using app cache and things like that. You can bring it up and completely use it in the browser. The thing that I love about the web is I'm a big user experience guy. I really like giving people the best user experience possible. And I think that user experience begins with the app deployment process. How do you actually get the app? And there, in the history of programming, has never been a better user experience to get an app than type in the name of the app and press enter, and then you've got it, you're using it. There's no installation, there's no updates, it's just there and you're using it. And I want to use the best, and that's the best. There's nothing better than that. Obviously what you do past then is sort of, up to the web developer themselves. And so I always kind of try to push the limits and just, I don't see why there's any reason that you can't have a better UX or just as good or if not better UX in the browser once you're there than you do natively. Right now I do a lot of stuff with Elm because I also like using the nicest tools I can when, when I'm programming, and Elm is the nicest tool I found for web development, and excited to be here.
Yeah, my name is Nikita. I'm from Russia, and I'm not web developer per se. I mean, I worked on web applications all my life, but from the backend side mostly. And a couple of years ago, I got drawn into Clojure community, and it turned out that there is very active research in Clojure community about the user interfaces and how to build web interfaces and stuff like that. Well, probably because the field is well, there are not that many great ways to build user interfaces. So this field is moving very quickly, and this is why I'm interested in it. So I'm working in Clojure script now. It's in browser dialect of Clojure, and I build well, web applications now in front end.
Thank you for introduction. And it was a really interesting point, Richard, you made about web, and that we don't need native apps because we can build everything into the web in the future. So do you think that in few years we are going to get rid of native apps and everything will be just big browser, or?
Personally, I don't think we'll ever get there. And I think the reason for that is that part of what makes the web nice is that you have this abstraction on top of the low-level stuff. And that allows for that seamless app delivery process, and it also allows for end-user confidence from a security perspective. So it's nice that I can type in something and press enter and go there. It's not so nice if it's downloading an arbitrary executable and running it, because it could be doing who knows what to my system. JavaScript gives people a restricted subset that you can trust. But I think the frontier of whatever is the newest, greatest technology is never going to want that limitation. I think so. Right now, that's VR. So if you watch like John Carmack's tweets about what he's doing with Oculus and things like that, there's no way he's ever going to say, "Yeah, we'll just chuck C++ and just build these crazy optimizations that are the future of whatever VR is going to be like." Dealing with any layer of abstraction that's not just something compiling to machine code directly. And I think that that's just a constant moving target. So there's always going to be some amount of native. I think that recently we saw a resurgence in native because performance on phones was so critical. I think it's going to be a lot less important for phones as the hardware gets better and better, and people don't mind the cost of that abstraction. It gets nicer and nicer. But I think it's just wherever we get to, it's always going to be, okay, yes, but the next frontier still wants native, wherever we are.
I would say it's not just about performance. Like the native user experience has some sort of fairly specific interactions, behaviors that are really hard to replicate using a web UI. Not because there are sort of fundamental technological limitations, but because companies like Apple spend like years working on sort of the optimal optimization for a navigation controller. And every time you try to sort of replicate that behavior using your own code, you're doing something that isn't really benefiting your user, because the end result is not what users are used to. Even at a sort of at a fairly sort of visceral level. I mean, some of these things are really hard to describe, but you just notice that something is off when you use a sort of non-native navigation interaction, for instance. But at the same time, I think there's a lot about web and about web development that I'd like, and that would be great to sort of reuse in a native development context. So sort of the fast development cycle and some sort of recent developments in programming models, like the reactive programming models that React has popularized. I think those really go beyond what you can currently do with pure native platforms. I mean, I'm a big fan of iOS, of Cocoa frameworks, but there is just a lot of boilerplate of manually hooking things up that purely reactive programming model is just a much nicer way of developing these user interfaces. So I can see sort of native development learning from web development. And there are, of course, different use cases. You're not always trying to recreate a native UI. There are plenty of applications where web technologies are a great fit.
I think a lot of it has to do as well with the investment that goes into developing the mobile browser engines. Because, for example, you're mentioning a lot of the UI components that are native feel so much better. Well, those could perfectly be applied to the mobile web browser as well. So, for example, if you have a date picker and you're using the correct semantic HTML tag, whatever it is, you'll get the same one that you get from GoGo on the mobile web browser experience. So I think when we talk about native and we talk about web, we have to talk about not just, perhaps a part of it is how you get to the application. The idea of visiting a website and downloading the application on demand, on the fly, is really appealing because you're not going to an app store, you're not hitting download, you're not waiting. Sometimes the updates perhaps even block the user experience. It's happened to me that I have to get a cab with Uber really quick. I'm from San Francisco, so that's a primary concern. And the update process is blocking the interaction with the program because it's assuming this download model that the web doesn't have, because the web is always downloading on demand. You go to the website, you get the latest version of the code. So that's a part of the native versus web experience, is how you get the application, how you download it. What are the restrictions about installing it? For example, is there an approval process? I think this is a very meaningful distinction because when you're pushing code, if we think about it in terms of latency, comparing like web latency versus native latency, there's a 7-day latency for getting your code out there when Apple is reviewing it, right? So we have to measure latency in all the possible angles. And there are some in which the web is critically better. I think pushing code with the opportunity of hot code reloading, for example, also gives an edge to web technologies.
But that's exactly where I think sort of native development can learn from web development, and where we already see like really meaningful developments. Hot code push, for instance, is of course used with mobile web apps. Like Meteor, for instance, has hot code push for Cordova apps. But there are a number of services now that actually do hot code push for React Native apps. Microsoft just released sort of an open platform for this. And there are several startups doing something similar.
Yeah, and I think the React Native model ultimately makes so much sense because if the mobile web browser is not evolving fast enough, then we can create our own rendering target. So we're using a web-like approach, namely this idea of like including tags and components really easily and binding data unidirectionally to these widgets very easily. But then how those widgets are rendered is up to us, which with the traditional web development workflow, you can't do. Because the browser is taking over with its performance limitations. Now we can target and render directly to the Android APIs, perhaps in the future to a WebGL unified rendering target. So I think React Native sort of like bridges the gap here and could be the ultimately the safest bet perhaps in the short term to get that flexibility that the web gives you with the nativeness, with the look and feel, with taking advantage of the operating system level features sooner than waiting for Apple perhaps to upgrade WebKit to give you the APIs that you need, which in the context of business can be critical.
One other point, I think you made a good point earlier about there's no technological limitation on why there can't be more in common between the different platforms. I think historically it's been pretty interesting to watch. If you think about like the 1970s, there were no personal computers. And in the 80s, you had like Windows 3.1 versus Macintosh operating system, and they were very significantly different. But over time, it seems like those differences are shrinking, and there's becoming more of a convergence as people sort of learn what makes sense to end users who are using these computing platforms. And if you compare Android and iOS today versus Apple, Mac OS versus Windows 3.1, they're a lot closer as far as user experience goes. So I think the idea of proprietary things being much more important and sort of the individual differences in operating systems, I think, are shrinking as time progresses, and I think they're going to continue to shrink. So long term, what feels nicer and snappier on the Apple version of the operating system versus the Google, the Microsoft, whatever, I think is going to converge and become less of an issue over time.
Okay, so you, Richard, thinks that we can get to the point where these platform differences won't matter anymore, and the only reason to stick with native development would be performance or very new features or something like that?
Primarily, I would say. I think there will always be a few differences, but I mean, if I bring up, for example, Firefox on Windows system versus Firefox on OS X versus Firefox on Ubuntu, the main difference is the scroll bar. I mean, like that's really. I mean, beyond that, they've abstracted away so much of the UI that I don't really notice much else. I guess the radio buttons are a little bit different since Mavericks or Yosemite changed them to blue on OS X. But I mean, it's really the overwhelming majority of the user experience is identical across those platforms, and I think that's going to be more true as time progresses. Yeah.
And I think this is especially true if you look at Material UI, for example. If you look at Google Inbox on iOS or Google Inbox on Android, there are very, very, very few differences. I think one of the differences that will continue to exist is native development will always give you the edge in terms of adoption of new features that get pushed with iOS updates, for example. So if iOS 9 comes out and gives you an opportunity to implement a new feature, like perhaps a home screen integration or something along those lines, something that's proprietary and crucial at the operating system level. You will need native APIs for that. But I think we'll get to the point where perhaps 90% of the app is the same, which is exciting because we'll reduce development costs and will make things easier for us to test and replicate across platforms.
Okay, well, let's welcome another guy on the stage. Yeah, introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I lost track of time. My name is Paul Taylor, and I was, until September, I was on the UI platform team at Netflix. So I guess that's why I'm up here. I didn't hear the previous question, so I don't really have anything to say about that. But hi, everybody.
Okay, Paul. And what do you think about the discussion? You maybe heard something while you are here? What's your opinion?
I heard differences between native and mobile apps. I think the biggest difference right now is the 350 millisecond tap in mobile browsers. And as soon as that goes away, there probably won't be much difference.
Okay, thank you. So this gets us to another point. What's the biggest obstacle today? Why are we still using so much of native apps, at least on mobile? And why web mobile apps mostly sucks? What should we improve to get there to the point where we can use mostly web apps on mobile like we do on PCs? Almost no one's using email client these days.
Oh, sure. I would say three things. One is the example you gave, like the 300 millisecond delay is a perfect example of this, which is basically artificial things that are introduced and probably unnecessary for trying to make the web experience different from the native experience. Two is just, it's not something that we need to change, it's just wait. Like, currently mobile experience is different from desktop experience, I think primarily because the processors are slower. I think if you tried to take today's JavaScript and run it in the 1990s, it would be miserable. The only reason it's good today is that processors on the desktop are so much faster, and they're not on mobile. So I think if we just wait, the hardware will catch up and things will feel snappier. The third thing is that at least technically today, primarily, it's difficult to make a web application that gets sort of to be a first-class citizen in the task switcher of the operating system. So as an example, we use Slack at work. Slack's UI, like their OS X client, is implemented using like a native web wrapper. Like if you hit Command R, it will refresh the app because that's just what it's built around. But the reason we download that and use it as opposed to just using Slack's web client in the browser is just that I want to be able to switch from my code editor to the client using the operating system's task switcher rather than switching from my client or my coding environment to the browser and then to the appropriate tab and then respond and then switch back and switch back. And just that one little UX thing is the only reason that I'm using the downloaded client. So there's an API for specifying how you can register your web application as a first-class citizen in the operating system and let it use the normal task switcher. But as far as I know, it's only really used on mobile right now. Like I know Chrome on Android supports it, and there are like a couple other things, but I don't think the desktop applications, as far as I know, have really implemented that yet. Which is a bummer because I would much rather, instead of downloading that Slack client, I would have rather just pressed a button and the browser says, hey, do you want to let this be a first-class citizen in the task switcher? And say yes, and that'd be the end of it. It'd be a lot easier for Slack, it'd be a lot easier for me as an end user, but it really hasn't taken off yet. So as far as what we can do, I guess put pressure on browser vendors to implement that. That'd be nice.
I mean, that's one example among sort of many things that are still missing from web technologies. Proper sort of multi-threading or concurrency is another big issue. And just to get back to your question, like why should that be the end goal? Like why should the end goal be web technologies? Like I'm not really, I don't have a specific goal in mind when it comes to native versus web. Like whatever technology works, but I would like us to work on sort of better programming models that sort of span both ways to share code, both between platforms and between client and server, programming models that offer reactivity, like right from the data store to your UI. And I think we're sort of, especially in the React community, we're at a very interesting point where there are all these really exciting developments that don't necessarily have to do with web, I think.
Well, I think one of the keys is maybe this idea of for native applications, you have to go to a store that has a review process that requires a specific type of download and a type of binary deployment and a subscription to a developer service or that you pay yearly. So there is a difference there in terms of pushing the web as a decentralized, open alternative. So that's a fundamental difference, I think. In terms of the technology, I think we desperately need something like the progressive apps concept that was introduced for Chrome on Android, which is the idea that you can launch a web experience and then you can upgrade it to a native experience. Because to most end users, the native experience is all about having an icon for their most common apps. If you look at most statistics, like maybe 10 apps take up the majority of users' time and attention. So for people, they just want to have, most people, they just want to have their preferred maybe restaurant delivery service, taxi service, social network, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all about that sweet experience of having something installed. There's also the benefit of what they do in terms of reviews. Web applications, there is no review process where you can say, oh, this app actually like drains my battery or something like that. So there is a contextual, I think, experience to native applications that has to do with the store process that gives you reviews, that gives you screenshots. So there's a little bit of a user experience even before you commit to that application that's going to take up your home screen real estate, your attention, and so on.
Don't forget
and your
monetization.
resources.
That's an important one.
Totally. So that also goes into the idea of APIs. So the cool thing about native applications is that there is this sandbox, and you've also granted permissions. So web applications seem to be on the side of nothing is permitted because there's this strong idea of protecting privacy and security. But native applications, they like you say, okay, I'll give you access to my contacts, I'll give you access to this and that, and then the experience is super smooth after that. So for the web to actually become a more serious platform for taking up a lot of the time, for taking up the home screen real estate, etc., we need to have this idea of upgrading from the web experience to the task switcher, first-class operating system experience where you've granted permissions to access the other parts of the operating system, and then it sort of becomes more of an app. Whereas I think right now web browsers are optimizing for consuming content. An example of this is you go to Google Images and you go to an image carousel that maybe works really well on mobile web, but then as you approach the edges of the screen, you're gonna trigger the the tab navigation gesture. So the app is, the great mobile web experience is competing with whatever gesture mobile Safari has registered to switch tabs. So the experience itself is constrained by the web browser. So I think web versus native has all these different angles to look at it, from the idea of a store all the way to like where the web technology is running, if it's in the context of a mobile web browser or outside of it, and then the permission system and the APIs that are not, right now, don't even exist for the web.
I can add that, in my opinion, web applications will probably get to the level of the native applications eventually. What is lacking right now is if you're trying to build a web application, right? You will see that there are limits you can't get over. There are performance limits, and it is because probably the browser is trying to do too much for you. So probably for better development experience, it would be better if you could control more. If you can control layout, for example, the way you want it to be, or turn off some tab gestures and stuff like that. And so the web development is kind of limiting right now by offering too much, I guess. And another issue is that the web is integration between web apps kind of sucks, as you mentioned. It doesn't know about your contacts, for example. It doesn't know about your friends and stuff like that. And this would be great if this improves in future, but right now it's kind of sad. And the third option is lack of payment, I guess. So you can't build paid applications in web. So you kind of can. Forget about it. Of course you can. I guess that's it.
So I think to your point, and also to your point earlier, there was a question of why the web? Why should we converge on the web as opposed to these other things? If the important thing is sort of bringing software together and making it so we can build better user experiences that work for everyone. And I think the answer is that as technologists, we sort of tend to gravitate towards technological solutions to things, and we sort of tend to undervalue, I think, sort of by default, I know I do, the social aspects of things. And I think the web, first and foremost, is a great social achievement. The idea that you can have these disparate companies with disparate motivations and organizations like Linux Foundation, stuff like that, that all build different operating systems, and yet I can still write code that works on all of them and makes a good user experience. That's just a tremendous social achievement, even if it's not necessarily a monumental technological one, which in a lot of ways it is too. But I think the answer of why the web is basically the social aspects. It's that, in theory, there's no reason that you couldn't take Cocoa and that it couldn't be ported to run on Windows, on Ubuntu, on whatever else. But the fact is, it's really hard to get people to come together and actually implement that from an organizational perspective. And the answer is that the web has already done that. It's already overcome that social hurdle, and I don't know that anything else in our lifetimes is going to do the same thing, because it's just such an incredibly difficult hurdle to overcome. So I think the web will, to the extent that the web wins, if that's a useful verb to use there, I think it will win because of the social aspects.
Okay. I think there were nice arguments in favor and against. We will see how this will happen. One thing,
place your bets.
Yeah. You take stakes.
I mean, an important difference is like what time scale we're talking about. Like, I think my point is more sort of the immediate future, like the next 1 to 3 years. Your point might be sort of 5 to 10 years in the future.
Yeah, it's possible. What really makes me amazed is how these two different words of web and native are coming closer and closer together. Like, if you remember what was 10 years ago, doing web development and doing desktop applications development were two very different things. You were using jQuery there and using selectors or something, and you were using some MVC patterns here or MFC model of Microsoft or something like that. And now we have React for web and React for native. And you can use pretty much the same things, but you just call them differently because this is some native component and this is some DOM element. But you use very same patterns, very same data flows. And what today matters more and more is the way we think about the programs. And the platform is less and less important.
And what's interesting, I think, is that there's actually a lot of convergence towards certain programming models, both on native and on web. Like the sort of reactive paradigm, both in the form of sort of functional reactive programming and more declarative models we see with React, they've really taken off, like both in desktop development and web development and sort of mobile app development. And another point of convergence is the language, of course, like the fact that we have really JavaScript as a fairly universal language now, which I don't think is the most likely language to get there, but it got there. I mean, and it's improving. That's an important point. I mean, it's probably not the language I would choose based on the properties of the language alone, but the fact that it's a universal language is the important benefit.
Well, one interesting thing is that this goes both ways. Not only the native is inspired by web, but also we have there a question from Thomas Novotny. We are getting WebAssembly that brings low-level features to the web, so it goes also backwards. What do you think about WebAssembly? Is it a good step, making web more low-level?
I think it's great. I really can't say enough positive things about it. I think going back to, again, the social issues, it's a tremendous social achievement that the idea that we could write high-performance code for a bunch of different platforms that still has the same security characteristics that JavaScript has is unbelievably good. You were mentioning earlier that JavaScript is kind of an unlikely language, and that's because it's got a lot of flaws. It's a very flawed language. But we're starting to see more and more languages compiling to JavaScript, like ClojureScript, like Elm, even TypeScript, and now we even have JavaScript compiling to JavaScript, right? ES6 compiling to ES5, all these different languages. And so now that the idea is becoming more and more mainstream, that you don't write raw JavaScript, what you write is a language that compiles to JavaScript, it's a pretty logical next step to say, okay, now that we're already writing a language that compiles to our target of the web, of the browser, why don't we compile to something that's more powerful? Why don't we compile to things that can do more with the same underlying language that you're used to writing in? And I think WebAssembly unlocks that in a way that current JavaScript can't. And like you said, the browser in some cases tries to do too much. It does a lot of things for you. And that was probably useful as a bootstrapping mechanism, but now that we have these incredibly rich web applications, which I sincerely doubt that Brendan Eich envisioned back when he was slapping JavaScript together, I think that it's more and more important that we have access to languages that compile to something that's not only works in the browser, but that is higher and higher performance.
So WebAssembly gives us sort of primitives at the level of processing, at the level of the language. Yeah, but how do you feel about the DOM, the future of the DOM? I think there was a really interesting talk at React Europe last year. I forgot why, but it was about sort of exposing more primitives in web technologies. So getting rid of sort of the higher level DOM API, the CSS interface, making that sort of exposing the primitives there so you can build on top of it.
I think the sort of the good ideas behind the DOM are sort of the semantics and the security model. I think being able to express the idea of here is how my view is structured, so that you can render it in a bunch of different ways, like for a screen reader versus for a browser versus for whatever else the case, whatever, a search engine trying to figure out what's going on. Having that as a semantic idea is a good idea, and I think separately it's a good idea to couple the idea of security with the idea of a view. So you can't, for example, hijack the end user's clipboard and just steal secrets out of it. Things like that are both good ideas. I think that those are currently a little bit too tightly coupled with the specific implementation details of the DOM. Again, browser trying to do too much. It's a little bit too coupled with the exact view, the exact pixels on the screen. And I think the semantics and the security ideas are what's really important. So in that sense, I kind of hope that those become more and more exposed so that we can sort of, ideally one day it would be nice if we could express this with the same level of fidelity, the same semantics that we have right now with the existing DOM and the same security model, except making it look to the end user however we want.
Ultimately, too, for example, you can replace the DOM today. I think there is a great experiment of compiling React to Canvas. But I think the risk that we run when we're trying out those approaches is we're giving up on a lot of the nice things that we get from the DOM in terms of, for example, operating system compliance or accessibility. For example, what happens if you select text and you force touch on OS 10 and you want some operating system thing to trigger.
But I mean, maybe Canvas is like too low level, like they're the wrong primitives. But a little more customizability than sort of the DOM gives you by default, I think would be great.
Right. And I think that's definitely the direction we should go. And I think maybe that's something that's held the web back, that we haven't thought too much about breaking down the APIs and offering low level all the way to high level. Because ideally we have the DOM, which is so easy to get started with. It's so easy to write a bunch of HTML and CSS. We can keep that. But then we can also expose the low level APIs to developers that want more flexibility.
Well, and the higher level APIs can actually be, like they can move faster. They can be downloadable. They can be part of your app.
Okay, so we are expecting bright future where we can choose whatever language we want. And I see there is very highly voted question, which one should we actually choose? PureScript,
like the
Elm,
declarative
or
data
closure
fetching
script?
one.
Why is no JavaScript there? Probably the author does not like JavaScript. So, what do you think? Does this question matter? Is it important to choose the right language or use what everyone else uses?
Are we answering
yes.
This one? Well, I vote for Closure obviously. Yeah, I don't know. Do I need to explain or something?
I think they're trying to incite a language riot on stage. I vote Elm. I don't think, do we have any PureScript advocates on stage? I don't know if we do. Someone want to be contrarian and just take it up?
No.
I mean, maybe pure JavaScript. Let's say ES 2015, 2016.
Okay, so I guess we should So if this is highly upvoted, I guess people want to hear the differences between these languages and why we might choose one or the other. Like, show of hands, is that what people want, or something else? Okay, fight. I guess you.
Okay.
you
Yeah.
start.
I start. ClojureScript has a lot of great ideas like immutability and functional programming that really simplifies the programming experience. So you write programs that has fewer bugs and easier to write, more compact and stuff like that. And it's kind of a practical language, in meaning if this way of writing programs doesn't suit you, you can always downgrade to native JavaScript calls or some mutable operations and stuff like that. So you can actually write the whole programs in ClojureScript, and the most of your program will be functional and pure and clean and easy to understand. But in places where you need optimizations and stuff like that, you have backdoor. You can always use optimize the hot parts of your applications. So it actually works for kind of big applications right now. So that's why, I guess.
I think the interesting thing about ClojureScript is its roots in Lisp, and PureScript and Elm being Haskell variants. Haskell's great and I love it, but Haskell compilers need to know the entire world before they can make a decision. So the Haskell compiler sort of being a monolithic thing, whereas Lisp is like uses its purity to ensure that you can always dynamically inject code and run code, which is more in line with what the web does. I mean, JavaScript lets you do that, right? You can just eval something if you want. But that's what I've seen in writing web applications. Is it's been a big benefit to have the dynamic nature of Lisp available, just like it is in JavaScript. So.
What I like about Elm is I don't get runtime exceptions anymore. So that's nice. So it's certainly true that does, you have a compiler, going over your whole code base, then yeah, I mean, it makes it harder to dynamically do things on the fly. I think it's, at least my experience has been that that's a feature of JavaScript that I've really never used. I totally understand why that might be something that, I guess that's up to you. Is that something that you rely on? Certainly I don't miss runtime exceptions. So Elm, if you're not familiar with it, is essentially a lot of the things that you were talking about with ClojureScript, except more hardcore about it. So everything is immutable. There is no mutation in Elm at all. Everything is a constant. There's no reassigning variables. And everything is a pure function, or a stateless function. So that means that it doesn't have any side effects, and if you call it, and it will just look at its arguments and return the same result every single time. If you give it the same arguments, it will always return the same result, no side effects. And so it takes some getting used to doing that. But honestly, I don't think it's that bad, because we had somebody start who, her background was, she was a math major, then she went through a 3-month JavaScript coding boot camp, and she was writing production Elm in her first week on the job, at her first programming job. So I don't feel like it can be that difficult, but the benefits that you get are, no runtime exceptions. Testing is really easy when you don't have to mock things. That's what my talk on Wednesday is going to be in part about. As far as syntax goes, I guess Lisp is kind of a double-edged sword. Some people don't like the aesthetics, but certainly it's very simple to learn. Elm has more of a sort of traditional syntax than it does sort of, I guess, closer to Python or Haskell, if you're familiar with those. But I think the benefits are really just maintainability. So it's not just that we don't get runtime exceptions, but usually the experience is when we refactor something, no matter how big it is, even if it's just a massive diff, that as soon as we get it to compile, it just works on the first try with no regressions. And that's something I've never had in any language, let alone a language that works in the browser. I mean, even going back to my days as a Java programmer, which I hope never to go back to. One Java programmer in the audience. Yeah, I mean, I really would say that like the maintainability is the thing that makes Elm great.
Kind of feel of using your previous argument against you.
Go for it.
The social aspect, I think, like I said before, I'm not a big fan of JavaScript as a language. My current favorite language, I think, is Swift. But JavaScript has one really important benefit, and that's that it's really widespread. A lot of people know it. There's a clear sort of standardization process behind it that has finally led to some newer versions of the language. One of the other Meteor developers is under standardization committee, and he may have influenced me a little bit in respect. But he constantly emphasizes like how important it is that we actually have a language that that so many different parties have come together. So many different parties have come together to work on the future of this language, and it's all backwards compatible. So we have a huge community of existing JavaScript developers. There's a little bit to learn when you go from sort of ES5 to ES6, ES 2015, but it's incremental. And when you start a project with Elm and you try to find developers, you most likely run into trouble.
Maybe
so
if you have something like compelling point that would make me switch from JavaScript to Elm, like Rob Knight, it's asking.
Check your error logs for how many runtime exceptions you get.
I mean, from a language perspective, like all the things you said previously make a lot of sense.
Sure, yeah. So the social aspect is a great point, and I think that certainly Elm is a relatively new language, and I don't think I should say that. Well, okay. So there's the hiring question. Let's get back. I want to address your first point first, which is JavaScript is people are making it better, and it is valuable that there are so many people on this language. That's totally true. However, it's also totally true that there's a very good reason that we're not talking about Fortran 2015 right now. That was something that had massive adoption. You could have made the same argument about Fortran as you do about JavaScript today. But I think the fact is that as we learn more and more about languages, you reach an upper limit on what you can do while still preserving the semantics of a language and still making a massive improvement. I think if you want a truly massive improvement in a language, you have to switch to a different language, or at least to a language that becomes indistinguishable from its predecessor to the point where you might as well call it something else. So to that point, it's true that JavaScript is getting better, but there's also an upper limit on how good it can get while still maintaining those benefits that you're talking about, while it's still something familiar. At some point, if we want to get really strong benefits like no runtime exceptions, you have to change JavaScript in order to get that to something where it's just no longer recognizable as JavaScript. It's no longer something that people can just walk in and adopt if they're familiar with ES5. So I think that it's true that right now it's an asset of JavaScript that it's so widespread, but it's also true that that's inherently limiting in it. And if you really want to get technological benefits, you're going to have to eventually bite the bullet and switch languages. Okay, so to the hiring point, it's true that if you're starting a project right now, you might have trouble finding the number of Elm developers in the world is smaller than the number of JavaScript developers in the world. That is absolutely a fact. However, the number of really skilled Elm developers who are willing to come work for your company is a totally different story. So there is someone sitting in the audience right now who we hired. He's great. And the only reason we got him is because we said we're using Elm. Did I mention we're hiring? I say that a lot. And basically the way that we got him was essentially just we say we're using Elm. And if we say we're using JavaScript, we're trying to hire the best JavaScript programmers in the world, good luck. Because anyone who's good with JavaScript there are a lot of them, but they're all taken. Everybody who's got JavaScript has got a million job offers, recruiters banging down your door. If you're excited about technology and you're a good programmer and you want to use a new sharp technology, your options are much more limited. It's a really big selling point to be able to say, we use Elm in production. We have multiple people writing Elm all day, every day. That's like what their jobs are about. That's appealing to really good programmers. So from my perspective, I would say the opposite. There are actually social benefits to using a new language.
Are those Elm developers?
This is the exact argument as well that Paul Graham used to make about Lisp, where he was finding at his own startup that by focusing on Lisp, he was attracting he was basically a noise versus signal dichotomy, but for programmers, where he was finding it a lot easier to get really skilled Lisp developers in that case. But back to the social point, which I think is really interesting. I think a lot of it also has to do with compatibility between code, right? Because if you write an Elm widget or something that uses the Elm HTML package, it's not going to be compatible with your React code base. And I think that's the biggest accomplishment of React in particular, because the output of what you're going to share with the community is that component, which you include in your code base through whatever declarative paradigm you're using, but ultimately it could be some JSX tag, and the inputs and outputs are well understood. So you can write it in whatever programming language you want, and it's going to work with any other React code base. And this is something that also Meteor missed the opportunity on, because if I write a Meteor component and if I write an Elm component, they're not socially compatible, even at the API level.
We actually integrate with React.
Right, but then you had to switch your UI layer, just like with Elm. I guess you could switch Elm HTML with React, but I think that's where syntax and programming languages stop mattering as much. To me, the thing that I look for is what is the opportunity when it comes to sharing code, specifically too if we talk about like multiple platform deployment. Can I produce code that then can compile to different platforms? So not only do I get a larger pool of developers, but I also get more targets to compile to as well.
Okay. I think these were nice points about using JavaScript or switching to Elm or ClojureScript. Very interesting thing that's happening in the last few years is how we are replacing beta-tested components of web, like JavaScript, or like REST, or like DOM model, with new things like React, like Elm or ClojureScript, and like Falcor, GraphQL, or Relay. I would be really interested in your opinion on this. Is this the way to abandon all the things that we have in the current 20-year-old web stack and replace them with?
Yes. Burn it all down. No, I'm just kidding. I think I could really only speak in terms of things like Falcor and GraphQL. I'm not involved in GraphQL, but did have some conversations with the GraphQL team while we were doing Falcor. And the answer is it depends on what you're doing. So we wrote Falcor because we needed essentially the semantics of RPC, or sorry, the semantics of REST with the low latency benefits of RPC. So Falcor is really just kind of like the browser cache, but for structured application data instead of for documents. And I think you see that a lot with even sort of that same analogy is like the DOM is actually just for rendering documents initially, rendering research papers. And now today we use it for applications so then you introduce something like React and Virtual DOM and Shadow DOM and all this other stuff that's replacing CSS. And that's good. We need to be moving towards that because it means that like our applications, which were kind of shoehorned into this paradigm where it was really invented for displaying text documents, is evolving to where we can use it to build applications. So if your application is sort of a browsing problem that can be solved with the same solutions that you can to solve the browsing problem for text documents, then use REST and use your browser. If not, then pull in another library that's meant to solve your problem.
I completely agree. And I think this sort of web document versus app divide is really important, especially now that apps, due to the influence of mobile platforms, we really expect more of apps. So we expect sort of a real-time experience. We expect sort of immediate responsiveness. And I mean, this is one of the reasons a couple of years ago people started Meteor. And like at the time Meteor was developed in 2011, none of this was around. So a lot of the parts had to be built from scratch. And I think there are like obvious downsides to that. And I think we're getting to a point now where like more and more parties are joining at building something that we can all share, shared standards, shared projects, like GraphQL, like React. But the end goal, I think, is still the same, sort of replacing the traditional web model, including something like REST, with something that makes much more sense for modern apps.
I mean, REST has some really big benefits. There are some absolutely amazing things about REST. Primarily that resources can be accessed by unique identifiers by their path, means that you can cache things. And then the fact that REST natively supports redirects means that you can have backwards compatibility no matter what changes you might need to make. So if the location of some resource changes, the server can say, all right, cool, well, here, go to this place instead, and you didn't break anybody. So those things are we will still need going forward, and that's why we built them into Falcor. So I just didn't want to lose those features too.
I kind of disagree because, I kind of think that REST sucks. Yeah, because, I respect it because when it emerged, it was like a really simple thing to do, but it was more like against anything complicated. So like people don't invent anything complicated, just use HTTP, right? And it's a great idea, but it doesn't really offer you much. So it's like stay sane, but how do I do things I need? I don't know, just stay sane. Great advice. Well, yeah, right now we are getting somewhere. We are getting some APIs that actually helps you fetch data. And REST probably doesn't help you that much because, if you're building web applications, REST is not a way to access your data storage, right? Because you need completely different patterns that REST advocates for. And if you build APIs, REST is okay if you are not collaborating, if you are not building a client to the APIs that needs, for example, a specific fetch patterns or something like that. So for occasional fetches, REST is great. For more serious work, it's kind of sucks. And the caching in REST is questionable because, resources are usually not immutable, so there is no way you can say how long should I cache that.
So that's actually not true. In REST, resources are idempotent. So if you make a request for a URL for a resource, it shouldn't change anything. It should just get you the data. So making the same request twice should get you the same data twice. So you can cache it. And if you want, you can add your own cache control headers to it.
If, for example, resource is a person and I make first request, I get the person object, and then somebody changes the name, I send the second request, I get a different result. So if I put cache in there, I get the wrong compression.
Right, but that's why you'd use the REST's cache control headers that the server can send down to the browser. So if it's truly an idempotent resource, something that is immutable, then you can cache it. But if it's something that's volatile, then you either need to control it with invalidations or...
I think a more fundamental issue is whether we really want to be stuck with sort of request response, whether that is really what fits modern apps.
Regardless of whether your transport layer, whether it's request response or streaming WebSockets, something, there's data that you can be able to cache. You can always access it the same way. And then there's other things that are volatile resources that are like side effects from a function call, or the return value of a function call. That you don't necessarily need to cache that. It's kind of ephemeral anyway. But going forward, like something like with Falcor or even GraphQL, the data is the API. your UI that you're building is hierarchical. You're defining all the data that you need in your components as you go down. And ultimately, it's just kind of like working with a JSON object on another machine. Except that if we use traditional REST, which was designed for sending large documents like all at the same time, as opposed to like tiny little individual requests, which the latency is too high to get, then if REST could give us that, then we would use it. But since it doesn't, we wanted to get the good things from REST and the good things from our PC, just the ideas though, and then allow you to structure your application data in a graph. So effectively, like there are, sure, the implementation in certain people's implementation of REST is not the best, and I'm not going to be a REST apologist by any means, but there are a few really good ideas, which like idempotency is a core concept of functional programming. In a way, REST can be described as the Unix file system across computers. That's really what it's doing. You can query a server and it can send you back the information that it has all the way down until it gives you a file. And Falcor is effectively just the Unix file system for your web application in a way. So.
I think one of your earlier points really resonated with me, which is, it's sort of like Falcor is built on top of the REST, or the ideas of REST. And I think something that we've gotten better about with programming is sort of ushering in the new generation without losing contact with the old generation, and being better about being backwards compatible. Nothing that comes first to mind was with Elm, that I was like, okay, how does this talk to JavaScript? Can I interoperate with the JavaScript libraries I have? Because I don't want to re-implement a date picker from scratch. I want to just be able to use one that somebody else already did. And similarly with like REST and Falcor or GraphQL or whatever else, certainly your criticisms of REST, like there are plenty of criticisms of REST out there, but it is beneficial that you don't have to say, well, I got to pick one. I got to have my server either support REST or I have to have it support Falcor or GraphQL. That's it. But they're all built on top of sort of the same data transfer ideas, so that you can do both, and even if it's just a stepping stone, you can still be backwards compatible with the previous generation of ideas. I think that's really important and something that's served us really well to embrace as a programming community.
Okay, we are running out of time. Actually, we are 10 minutes past the time. I think that it's time to end, and regarding the questions that we haven't answered, we will send them to these wonderful guys, and they will pick the questions and they can write blog posts with answers. So watch the Twitter after the conference and you will definitely see something. And I want to say my great thanks to these amazing folks and this great discussion. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Cool. So I would like to just wrap up today. This is a very interesting panel that we listened to. I think we could go on and on and on until like 9 p.m. But there's going to be 2 full days of content. And when I say full, I really mean full. We start at 9 a.m. sharp. So seriously, if you're all registered, so you're good. But for those of us watching on the live stream that didn't manage to come today, there's a lot of you. I've watched numbers, and it's a couple of dozen of you, so I'm excited. Please come early. 8, we open the doors at 8 a.m. 9 sharp, we start. And tomorrow we don't have the luxury of going 10 minutes overtime, so I'm going to be a very strict guy on this. So we're going to be minute precise on the content. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing all of you tomorrow, 9 a.m., and have a great evening and have a great time, Bratislava. Thanks.